Hey guys, it's Chloe and welcome back to my channel. But today I'm going to be talking about peers, and I'm going to be talking about how I got into it as well as my experience. So I am excited to get into this video, and on that note, we're going to get started. So for context, for anyone that takes it literally, I'm not talking about my friends. This is an acronym for a social skills training course. So if you thought I was talking about my friends, then you may want to skip this video if that's all that you are interested in, and I'll see you next week. How I got onto this is I was talking with my licensed professional counselor because I see one. It's basically therapy, not ABA, but she is a counselor because there are different types of ranks of people. So she's a licensed professional counselor, and then there are therapists, which are higher up, as well as others, but just to give you a basic baseline. And I told her, I asked her if she had ever heard of peers, and she's like, yeah, I had to read a section of the book. Even though I wasn't going to be implementing it, it was part of my training. And I can't imagine, because it was awful, and I can't imagine what those individuals had to go through. But I don't know of anyone that did peers, so I can't really vouch for them. And I raised my hand and I said, I did peers. And at the time, because she also runs our once a week day program that I do, but the thing is that at the time that I did it, she was an intern. And then she liked it so much at the once a week day program that she got a legit job and became my counselor. And you are not required at this once a week day program to have a counselor, because some programs will make you do that, but this one doesn't. It's just that she happens to do counseling on the side, and I see her for that. So I'm going to talk about how I found out about this program. So I was going through Georgia Vocational Rehab, and my counselor only knew about the stereotypical part of autism, where it was someone who was not speaking and had sensory sensitivity, stuff of the like. She had never met somebody like me before, but she had recommended the program because that was what was recommended at the time, and just went off of that. And this was personal social adjustment training, I believe is what it's called. PSAT. The thing is that vocational rehab will pay for it in my state. However, they will not pay for it if you're going for more than one thing. So let's say you're going for college and there happens to be a peers program near you. They will only pay for one or the other. They will not pay for both, which they should pay for both. They're stingy and frugal and will not do that. So she told me where this was offered, and also she had told me that this person also does some sort of test that I needed to find out what vocation would be best for me and my strengths and my weaknesses. And to be honest, I forget the name of the test, but it didn't help. Afterwards, I spoke to her about it, and she said I'd be a phenomenal candidate for it, which is where the meat and potatoes of this video begins. The PEERS program stands for the Program for the Enrichment and Education of Relational Skills. I hope I'm saying that right. I think I may have gotten the words out of order, but PEERS. And it was developed at UCLA out in Cali by a researcher named Dr. Elizabeth Logginson. And it was a 16-week program that met, I believe, once a week. And every week we would have a different theme. And I'm not talking about one theme was Western and the other one was movie night. No. One theme would be finding relationships, and the other week would be maintaining them, just stuff of the like. And there was a specific way that we all had to go through it, and they had it carefully crafted like an art piece. And these programs are typically done through either a therapy practice, a college campus through like their disability department or whatever, or an ABA clinic. And some of y'all thinking ABA clinic, and yes, I am going where you think I'm going here. So if you feel so inclined, stay, but if not, then pop off this video and I won't get offended. But um basically with mine though, this was like a mobile therapy service. So they rented out co-working spaces. And the peers program in general has a bunch of different programs. They have pre-K, elementary school, I believe a teenage one, or they call it adolescence, and then young adult, and in some cases an adult. And the thing is that if you're an adult, you're not going to get paired with a pre-care. They group you up by age ranges, and I believe with elementary and pre-K, they do it within the schools. So before our first day of peers, we were given an e-blast with some forms that we needed to fill out and what we needed to bring on the first day and what to expect. And they said it was a 16-week program that met for an hour and a half during the same time every week. And it was like in the evening because we're adults. And, you know, not only do our parents have to work, but some of us had jobs too. You had to bring a parental unit or a caregiver, and it had to be the same parental unit or caregiver every week. And I'll get into that in a hot minute. We had to bring the signed and filled out forms as well as our parental unit or caregiver on the first day. And on the first day, the parental unit slash caregiver and the disabled individual all conglomerated into one room, and it was a group of people. It wasn't just a one-on-one session. You went with a group of people, and I'll explain why in a hot minute. The parental unit slash caregiver, they were instructed to be near their disabled individual. Basically, the peers facilitators went over the rules. With the rules and stuff, they just reiterated what was sent over the email and said that all the forms had to be signed and you had to give them to them if you hadn't done so already. And also, this was a 16-week program, and we met once a week at the same time every week. And we would be learning a new topic every week. And also, a big thing is that even though we were a group, we were not allowed to be friends with anybody in the group until after the program was over. There's a reason why they do that, and they said it's because they want you to go out and find friends, because that's the whole point of this program, instead of you becoming friends with people, because then it's like somebody feeding you the answers to a test instead of you actually going out on your own and studying for it. Same thing here. And they also said if you were paying for this program that you needed to pay for the program, which vocational rehab was paying for mine. So I didn't need to pay for it at all. And then they also said people that stick with the program are more likely to get results from the program versus people that don't follow through with the program. And they had a success story that they shared about one girl who did this program and had phenomenal results. They also said for this program that if you miss more than a couple days, you will not gain any of the information or learn as much as the people that commit to this program, and you may be kicked out. I also want to mention too that if vocational rehab is paying for this and you don't consistently show up, then they'll stop paying for it and you're on your own. Now, obviously, if there's a legitimate reason other than like transportation, like you were in the hospital or something, then they have to take that into consideration and they will continue to pay for it. Okay, back to the video. And afterwards, the parental units went into a different room and we stayed in ours. And the thing is that both the head peers facilitators were well versed with the caregiver parent side as well as our side as well. And they also, with our group, and it may not be the same for every place that you go to, but this one had people that had done the program and they came back to be mentors for us. The reason why the parents were in a separate room, which is why you have to have the same caregiver or parent every week, is because in there they would briefly learn about what we were learning, as well as they would also learn the research behind it as to why it's effective. And then they would also learn about the homework that we were going to be given. And our parent or caregiver, whoever it was that was coming, would be your social coach. For our first day, and this is one of the things I liked about it, peers, and the only thing I liked, but we each had to go around the room and say our name, but also we came up with our own rules for the group. And it wasn't like we each wrote down what we thought and submitted it, kind of like you would on a game show. It was more along the lines of you raised your hand, you said it, but the thing is that after you said it, everybody had to agree on the rule. And if no one agreed on the rule, then it wasn't a rule. And every week, what we had to do was we had to bring an interest of ours. And for instance, I still love American Girl dolls, and even back then I did. And I brought an American Girl doll, and it was funny because it was a co-working space, so there was a bunch of like business people there typically, and they had a snack bar that we could use. And I went to go grab a bag of chips, and I had this girl on my shoulder, but her hair was like facing towards like a businessman or something. And he was like, "Don't hold her like that," thinking that I was a kid. And I turned around with my doll and was like, "Whoops, I thought it was a kid." So there was that. And then basically, you went into the room and you would go around and introduce yourselves again one by one. And then, if you forgot somebody's name in the program, you were not allowed to ask the teacher for their name. You would have to look at them and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. You are blah, blah, blah." And they would dive into our lesson for the week, and it was a different lesson every week. After that, we would, just briefly go over it, and then we would watch a role playing video, and Pierce has them on their YouTube channel. So basically, we had to watch role playing videos, and there were two different videos for each lesson. And they focused on the same thing, but one was a good way to do it and the other one was a bad way. And at the end, they had talking points where we had to discuss as a group what went well and what, didn't go well, basically. And that's what the questions were like. And we had to imitate the role playing video. And the facilitator and the mentors would go around each group and we would have to, you know, role play with our peers in that group, hence the peers program. And after that, the mentors and the facilitators would give us feedback like, "Oh, Chloe, your shoulders weren't turned in the direction of the person you're speaking to. That shows that you're not interested." Or, you know, you asked if they like dinosaurs when they had a baking whisk with them, and dinosaurs and baking don't go together. Just stuff like that. And then afterwards, we would reconvene and you know, we would reconvene and the facilitators and the mentors would talk about each of our groups and talk about what went well and what they liked and what they didn't like in front of all of us. Then the parental units were brought in. Then they would talk to us about our homework. And typically, with our homework, we would get paired randomly with another person from the group. And it didn't have to be the group that we were in doing the role playing, it could be anybody in that peers program. And the only thing it couldn't be was like the head people, facilitators, or the mentors. We were not allowed to get them unless if there wasn't an even number of people, which they strive to have an even number for that reason. And then the parents would come in, they would stand behind us, and the peer facilitator and the mentors would briefly touch on what we learned as well as our homework. And what happened was at the beginning, it was just phone calls. And we had to, at the end of like the program, we had to find this other person and we had to say, hey, I'm paired with you for this assignment. Can I have your phone number so that we can talk? And it had to be a phone number. It was not allowed to be an email because they wanted us to be able to communicate over the phone to make it as authentic as possible. After that, we had to agree on a time to call each other, and we had to let our peers facilitator know that we exchanged phone numbers, and we had to tell her what time we were going to call each other. We had to confirm this with her so that she knew, and we were not allowed to change people unless if we already had that person the week prior. So regardless if you like them or not, you were not allowed to change people. Again, unless if you had someone already from the prior week. We would do the phone call and we had to do it no cap on speaker, and our parental units, which is why they are our social coaches, had to stand next to us, and we had to, you know, do the phone call, which they had given us a sheet of paper as to what needed to be said during the phone call. And things got like quote unquote more intense as the weeks went on. And ultimately, by the end, like during as it went on, you would eventually go hang out with this person. You wouldn't go out with them on a date, you would hang out with them. And it was facilitated by a peers instructor. And then by the, as it went on, they wanted you to find a club or group that interested you. And by the end of the program, you were supposed to join that club. Then basically after the phone call or whatever it is that you did, because your parents were also required to participate and listen in, based on what they learned from the program, they would, talk to you and say what went well and what didn't go well for the with your conversation. So basically giving you feedback. And the thing is that I ended up no cap quitting halfway through the program because I was overwhelmed by it and basically was shutting down because it was too much at once, and it was very and you had to, like, I got conflicting messages because one of the head, like, masters or whatever, peer facilitators, excuse me, they said I was already doing a lot because I was involved in a lot, and this was supposed to be for people that weren't involved in anything. But then another headmaster or facilitator, excuse me, said that I needed to be involved in more. And it was just very overwhelming. And I'm like, nope. I told my mom, and my mom's like, it's overwhelming for me too, because I have to sit there and I can't sit there for that long, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, I needed to get out of there. And I'm so glad I did. It really did feel like ABA to me based on everything that had happened. The only thing is, I forgot to tell my vocational rehab counselor, and she got angry because I quit halfway through and didn't tell her, and I was supposed to. But she wasn't of much help to me anyways. So overall, I would get the peers program a 1 out of 10. 1 being the worst and 10 being a phenomenal program. It was bad. It was ABA, it was forced, it was a lot all at once. So no, I do not recommend it. And that's it. I thank you guys so much for watching this video. And if you guys have ever done the Peers program, feel free to read your experience in the comments. And if you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave those in the comments as well. And can't wait to see you guys again soon. Bye.